Hi, and welcome back to the Stamperia Magic Forest mini album tutorial series designed for ScrapNCreate. In this video, we're going to begin decorating page 2. I have a piece of twine that measures 10 inches long. I've put a knot in one end of it. I've measured the center of my flap, and I'm going to adhere my twine just here to the center. So I'm going to have this coming down. It's going to be my closure. And I'm going to take a piece of my masking tape and place over the end of my twine so that it's held firmly in place and won't go anywhere. From this 8x8 piece, I cut first one piece that measures 5 inches. Then I trimmed 1/4 inch off of it, so it's now 4 3/4, but I wanted to see both sides of the door evenly. This is cut to 7 3/4, so now it's 4 3/4 by 7 3/4, and I used my corner rounder on the bottom 2 corners. Now I'm going to place this here on this flap, covering the end of my twine. Now I'm going to leave this front pretty plain for now, but when I go back and embellish the album pages at the end, I will be adding things to this. Moving on, I've cut one more piece of that twine cut to 10 inches. I have a knot in one side, and I have marked the center of my little tiny bottom flap here. I'm going to place this on the pocket, and I'm going to place this coming down this part of the page. Now you want to make sure that you have it even. So if you're just eyeballing it, close your flap to see that it's in the center of that piece. And I'm going to place my tape over it to make sure that it is firmly held in place. We're going to start with these pieces here. So I'm using this 8x8 paper. I first cut this piece to 2 3/4 by 4 3/4. Then I cut this piece to 1 1/4, and it's going to go down here at the bottom. Then this piece is 1 1/2, and I use the corner rounder on the top 2 corners. Now it's going to tuck just slightly into that pocket, and we're going to have a nice uniform border all around it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that on, and then we'll come up here and decorate the larger flap. First, for the upper flap, I'm using this 12x12 paper. I'm cutting one piece that measures 4 1/4 by 4 3/4. It's going to go in the center. This is where the photo will go. Then for the top and bottom, I'm using this piece of 12x12. I've cut one piece that measures 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. Then I cut this in half again, so these measure 1 3/4 by 4 3/4. On the top one, I use the corner rounder to round both corners. So both pieces are the same size, but only one of them has the corners rounded. I'm going to place that one at the top. This one's going to go in the middle, and this one will go at the bottom. There will be a small border around and between each of these papers. From the 8x8 sheet, I did cut this little piece. I backed it on cardstock and fussy cut around it. I'm going to place it down here, only adhering the bottom down so the photo will slide behind it. Then I also have from my ephemera assortment, I've got the gold leaf and I've got one of the green leaves. I'm going to place these behind that cardstock piece. So I'm going to remove the backing on these first and place those down before I place my cardstock piece. Next, I'm going to open this piece, and I'm going to cut a piece here that's going to measure 2 3/4 inches by 4 3/4 inches. And I'm going to cut it from this paper here, just using this piece so that it will match this part up here. I did round the bottom 2 corners on this piece before adhering it down. And then I took one of my ephemera pieces and I backed it onto some cardstock, fussy cut around it. I'm going to make this a tuck spot. From the 12 by 12 tag sheet, I cut one of my tags and I'm going to place this in here. So when I place my piece, I'm going to make sure that this tag will fit, and I'm going to adhere just the front foot and the back part of the foot so my tag will slide in there. So first I'm going to add my adhesive here and here. And then I'm going to line this up. I'm actually going to have the back foot, the edge of it be slightly off of the decorative paper and onto the cardstock. That way I have plenty of space here. And I'm going to press these down. I'm going to remove my tag so I don't get any glue on it. And now I have my tuck spot with my tag. Coming up in here to the center, we will be using this piece, the same piece that we used for the previous frame. Again, I'm cutting this way so that I have all of these different textures. I have cut 5 strips that measure 3/8 by 8 inches. Then I cut 2 of them down to 7 3/4 of an inch. The first one I'm going to start down here in this bottom left corner, and it's going to go right to the end of the cutout. The next piece, I rounded this corner just slightly using my scissors. It's going to go up here at the top and come down to the cutout. For my next 2 pieces, I cut them to 4 3/4 of an inch. One is going to go down here, and one is going to go up here. This one, I need to slightly trim the bottom corner, rounding it just a little bit since the corner here is rounded. My 5th strip I cut to 4 1/4 inches, and I'm going to place this here in my center. So I'm going to adhere all of this on, and then I'm going to come back and add some decoration to this. So now that I have all of my pieces covering my frame, I'm going to use my first ephemera piece, and I'm going to adhere this so that it crosses my frame. It's going to be down here a little bit and up here on my vellum. I'm just going to figure out how I like this best and what look I want before I place it down. So once I'm satisfied with it, I'm going to make sure that it is completely adhered so there's none of the stickiness that can catch on anything else. Then I'm going to take my second piece, it's the imagination piece, and I'm going to place it down here in the corner. And then I'm going to burnish it to make sure it has a nice good hold. So next we're going to add a piece into our pocket to cover the back side so you can see it through the vellum. Then we will remove that strip of double-sided tape to place that down, and we'll create our 2 pockets and we'll add some inserts. For the inside of the pocket, I'm going to use this 12 by 12 piece. I cut this to 5 inches, then I cut this piece to 8 inches. And I'm going to just add my adhesive and very carefully tuck this all the way into my pocket so that when you look through the window, you will see that behind, and it's going to look like this eagle is flying over that seam. Now that I have my paper inside my window, I'm going to remove the backing off of my double-sided tape. And then I'm going to press this down to seal this to create 2 separate pockets. Now, if you prefer to have one large photo mat instead of 2 small ones, you can leave that piece off and you can just stick a larger insert in here. So now I have my 1 pocket here and my 1 pocket here. I'm going to be using this paper for my photo mat, so I have cut 2 of those, but we're going to be using this side for the fronts. So I have my 2 pieces here. They measure 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And then from the 8 by 8 paper, I've cut these 2 cards. I'm going to place 1 here and 1 here in the center. They are 3 3/4 of an inch, so they will fit exactly on my cards. Now, because these pockets are tight, I'm not going to add a layer of cardstock onto this. I'm just going to use this for my photo mat. So this will be the front and then the photo will go on the back. So now that my photo mats are finished, I'm going to place them in my pockets. If you want, you can also add a little tab to pull these out. It can be a little bit easier, but I'm going to leave mine because I don't want anything hanging out of the side. So this is what the pocket's going to look like with the tags in it. And then when you remove them, you'll be able to see the image in the back. Or if you flip them over, you'll be able to see your photos when you place your photos in the album. So I'm going to close this up. Now this is a little bit thicker because it does have everything underneath of it. And then I'm going to take one of my cut apart cards and I'm going to place it here. From the 12 by 12 collection, I'm going to take this card and just place it here in this pocket. And then I'm going to close this flap and tie it shut. And I'm going to actually trim some of my ends off because I don't want that much sticking out. And then I'm going to retie those knots in the ends. So this is the front of page 2. Again, we will add some more decorations later when we go to embellish the pages after they're in the album. Next, we're going to start on the back of page 2. I'm starting out with this piece cut out from the 12 by 12. I did adhere it to a piece of cardstock. I'm not going to fussy cut this out yet. So I'm going to cut a piece of decorative paper. My piece measures 2.5, 1, 2, 3, by 3 3/4. So I'm going to cut a piece of this paper that's the same size so that I'll be able to hide a magnet between these layers. Then I'm going to fussy cut around this. Now that I have my paper cut, I'm going to flip it over. This is going to be the inside. I'm going to place my magnet on the back side of my cardstock. So I want this to be at the top, and it's going to be approximately 7/8 of an inch down from the bottom edge. Then I'm going to apply adhesive to this entire piece and adhere it to the back side and cover that magnet. Now that my magnet is between the 2 layers, I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut this from the cardstock. So now I have my magnetic piece ready to go. It's going to be attached down here to this flap, and then this flap will have the magnet under it, so it will pull up. So this is the piece from the 8 by 8 papers that we're going to use to cover this here. These measure 5 inches and these measure 3 7/8 of an inch. I took 1/8 of an inch off the top and the bottom strips instead of in the middle so that these will actually match up perfectly when they're on the page. I used the corner rounder on the top left corner and the bottom left corner, so that they will match up with the page. So we're going to start by adhering this piece down to the center of the bottom flap. Then we're going to put our closure on, then we'll add our magnet before we place our top flap. I'm going to take a second magnet and attach it to my first magnet. I'm going to just temporarily lay this piece on here so that I know what's going to look good when I place my closure. And I'm going to bring it over here towards the right hand side so that it doesn't cover up the more decorative part of the papers. But I don't want it to go too far off the edge of the paper either. So I'm going to make sure that the font is straight. Then I'm going to take my pencil and I'm just going to draw a small line along part of this curve so I know where to place this. And I'm going to add some adhesive. I keep my fingers where the rest of the closure is going on the top flap, so I know not to apply adhesive over where my fingers are. Then I'm going to lay this right back down, move that one out of the way, and put my piece in place. Now again, making sure that everything is straight and lined up. Then I'll burnish this down so that this is adhered to this bottom flap. Now I'm going to peel the back off of the magnet, and then I'm going to close it to place my magnet correctly, and then I can cover it with my paper. So now we have our magnetic closure placed. We'll go ahead and start on the inside. So I'm going to start decorating these two flaps here. I have my pieces cut. They're from the 12 by 12 paper. It looks like this. And I'm going to cut two pieces that measure 5 inches by 3 7/8 of an inch. On this bottom one, I rounded the top left-hand corner. It's going to go here. And on the top one, I measured the bottom left-hand corner, and it's going to go here. Then I've cut this strip from this 8 by 8 paper here, and I have cut it to be 3 7/8 inches, and I'm going to place this here. Now you can just adhere the ends down so your photo will tuck behind it, or you can adhere the whole entire thing and then the photo will go on top, or a smaller photo will be beside it. So whatever you would prefer. Now I'm going to adhere these down, and then I'll come back and we'll start on the middle. Now that my flaps are decorated, I'm going to move into the center. I have my 8 by 8 piece. I did cut it apart so it measures 5 inches by 8 inches, and I've rounded the two corners on the left hand side. So this is going to go here to cover the entire back surface. Then I've taken the large ephemera piece and I've put this on some cardstock. I fussy cut around it, and I'm going to adhere this down to the bottom as a tuck spot. So I'm going to adhere quite a bit of this base, and then we're going to tuck some things behind it as a place for photos or journaling. Now that I have my background on, I'm going to add my piece here, and I'm just going to add a large strip of adhesive towards the bottom of my piece on the whole entire piece. And then I'm going to place this just above the score line. Now, because of the way this page is lumpy from the front side, I'm going to open this just so that I can press this down flat. It can be very helpful to do this when you're decorating your pages sometimes if they start to get bulky, or you could have untied this to open this up just so that it'll lay a little bit easier for you. So now we have this as a tuck spot. From the 12 by 12 papers, I have my cut apart and my tag. I'm going to place both of these behind her here. So this will be a little flatter when it's in the album. It won't be up quite as much just because of the way this page is sitting. Moving on to this flap here. From the 12 by 12 sheet, I'm cutting one piece that measures 4 inches by 6 inches. I'm using the corner rounder on both corners on the left-hand side, and I'm going to place this here on this flap. I'm going to leave mine plain so a 4 by 6 photo will fit here, but if you want to add any embellishments, you could, so that a photo will tuck underneath. Now I'm going to fold this closed and we're going to decorate the front side of this flap. First, I'm going to cut this piece from the 12 by 12 paper. It's 4 inches by 6 inches, and I've used the corner rounder on both corners of the right-hand side. I'm going to adhere this down first and then add a little bit of decoration. From this leftover strip here, I cut one piece that measures 1/2 inch by 6 inches. I'm going to adhere just the top and the bottom to my photo mat, and then I'm going to add some clusters here using my ephemera. First, I'm cutting the Magic is in You piece from the 8 by 8 sheet, and I'm going to place this here, so this is sticking out, and this is going to be adhered just to my paper that I just placed down. So I'm just going to put the adhesive on there and add this piece. Then I have 3 of the leaves from the ephemera assortment. And now I'm going to apply these. So the first one, I'm going to place the green one over here, right at the edge of the paper. So it's okay that it's sticking down onto the paper. The gold one, I'm going to apply next, right on top of the green leaf, but also on this strip. And then I'm going to take my red leaf, I'm going to lift my gold leaf back up a little bit, and I'm going to place it just under there. So there's a trio of those leaves. Just give a little bit of extra color and just a little bit of decoration. So now that photo will still slide up underneath of there on the page, or a smaller photo can be placed here and it won't even have to go underneath of this. So now my page is finished. I've got my flaps decorated. I'm going to close this up and we will add more embellishments to this once we start embellishing all of the pages. So this is the back side of page 2, and this is the front side of page 2. In the next video, we will begin building page 3. So stay tuned for that. And if you're new to this tutorial series, you can head over to the ScrapNCreate website at scrapncreate.com and pick up all of the Magic Forest papers if you want to join in on the fun. They'll all be linked in the description box below.